as most people utilize YouTube to go find solutions, you're using YouTube to find problems.
Yeah. I mean, I think the fallacy that everybody has when they're starting a business, and it's almost everybody, is that like you want to build something, you want to build a solution. I want to build something cool, no matter what it is, whether you're moving dirt, whether you're moving data, it's all kind of the same thing. And so I think that everybody's trying to create solutions, but I think the big piece that I figured out when I was younger, and it took a while. It wasn't very intuitive to start, but it was like, what are really interesting problems that there's a hole in them, whether it is, no matter what it was, that I want to go solve for. And that's how you build something that's actually useful and going to last. So I think that was the thing for me where it was, I can, if the solution already exists, it's probably not something I want to work on.
The sound of that tractor means it's time for us to get to work. You're listening to the Give Us the Dirt podcast powered by Hoopah Grading Company. My name is Brandon, and I am your host. Today, we have a special guest who began making waves in the construction industry at a very young age. Zach Laberge. You like my French there? That was good, wasn't it? The inspiring founder and CEO of Frenter started the company when he was just 14 years old. Now 20, Zach is revolutionizing the way contractors access construction equipment, bringing a fresh perspective and innovative solutions to the field. On this episode, we'll dig into how he started the company at an early age, his sources of inspiration, challenges he's overcome, next generation entrepreneurship, and how he's making an impact in the construction industry. Stay tuned because you don't want to miss this inspiring conversation. Zach, welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. You just told me you were back-to-back podcasting today, huh?
Yes, sir. Yeah, no, just a busy day in Toronto. I'm back in Canada for a little while, so figured I might as well kind of fill up my days here.
You're on the verge of celebrity status right now, Zach. How's that feel?
It's I don't know about all that, but I appreciate it. I mean, I think it's kind of cool when you're going to networks and people kind of know what you're doing or have heard of kind of what you're trying to work on, and I think it's kind of cool.
Are you embracing that, or are you uncomfortable with it still?
It's a little funny when people know who I am before I talk to them. I don't love that. I always want to get kind of the first impressions. I think are pretty important, but I think that hey, if we're doing something, people news of any kind is good news, right? So I think we're doing something right.
Well, you're definitely doing something right. I think it's really cool, and I appreciate you spending some time with us. Let's go ahead and get this one out of the way because I know you're probably sick of this one, but you started pretty early, right? You had a passion for starting businesses at a very young age. Where did that come from?
I mean, to be honest, I think it was just I like projects that I was interested in, and what projects I was interested in, that all changed. My first little project was I bought a couple watches from China for $10. I sold them for $40, and I did that a couple times. I also really liked Instagram, so I built my dog. He had 30,000 followers on Instagram, and he had real celebrity status. So I got him status. Then I started selling dog cookies that were branded with his name. And that was when I was like 12. So I think it was always just like little projects that I thought were super cool that I was excited about that I wanted to work on.
Right. So were you being pushed to raise money, to go out to find a part-time job, to allowance? What? Or you just said, hey, I want to do this?
I think I was at a camp. My parents always wanted me to do stuff in the summer. So we did a lot of camps. We did a lot of I have a twin brother, so it would be him and I going to different things. But basically I went to this camp once, I think, and this kid was telling me about how he had bought some shirts from this website called Alibaba from China. And I thought it was pretty cool. So that's kind of how I heard about it. Once I did it once, I kind of got a bug for it. And I said, okay, what else can I make some money doing? So
Zach, that's hilarious, man. I love that. So we didn't have YouTube when I was growing up, right? So I think that's one of the advantages for someone like yourself that's an entrepreneur and wanting to figure out how to start businesses. You went to the school of YouTube.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think YouTube came out in 2005, like year I was born. So, it's one of those things where I was blessed to have so much like knowledge out there and just resources, right? Like I think the hardest part of doing this journey is you feel really alone. But when you got a kind of world that's pretty interconnected, you can learn a ton really quick.
One of the things I listened to speaking of you being on the podcast circuit, I listened to one of your previous podcasts, and it was kind of cool because as most people utilize YouTube to go find solutions, you are using YouTube to find problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me about that. What do you mean by that? Because I thought that was really interesting to hear you say that.
I mean, I think the fallacy that everybody has when they're starting business, and it's almost everybody, is that like you want to build something, you want to build a solution. I want to build something cool, no matter what it is, whether you're moving dirt, whether you're moving data, it's all kind of the same thing. And so I think that everybody's trying to create solutions, but I think the big piece that I figured out when I was younger, and it took a while. It wasn't very intuitive to start, but it was like, what are really interesting problems that there's a hole in them, whether it is no matter what it was, that I want to go solve for. And that's how you build something that's actually useful and going to last. So I think that was the thing for me where it was, I can, if the solution already exists, it's probably not something I want to work on, but why don't I just go on YouTube and find people that are, what are like, I've been following Aaron Witt for a long time, and Aaron's fortunate to be a kind of a friend of mine now. And I think that it's cool when you see like his talking about the dirt world and all this kind of stuff where like, again, you get that firsthand look and you don't got it. Like I was never really on a job site when I was younger, but I got to live vicariously through other people, which is pretty cool.
It's interesting you bring up Aaron. Aaron's a friend of ours too, and loves his story and how he got started. And you guys have very similar stories in that you both identified a problem. Aaron identified a problem within the dirt world, and he pressed into that and started providing solutions. You've done the same. Both of you very inspirational, very talented individuals. You mentioned this journey can feel lonely sometimes. You mentioned that. And I imagine that especially is true during the teenage years, right? A lot of your friends, I can't imagine, were out there selling watches and building Instagram pages for their dogs and coming up with new businesses. So what was that like growing up? Did you know that, hey, I'm different, I'm wired different, and then how did you find a group of people that you could talk to and walk with through this journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think what is I think a common human thing, if you're gonna try to relate to people on a human level, is like we all got stuff we like to geek out on. Some people it's hockey, some people it's math. For me, it was business. I really liked it, wanted to geek out on it. Uh, I think it's a little harder when that kind of became my life. And when that became my life, like when I, left high school to work on this, like it was, that's all I could talk about because I didn't, I never really took like grade 11 chemistry or that kind of stuff. Like I never, really went to high school. I mean, the whole kind of high school part. So I think that it was not until I started to build my network of people online and I built a good group of friends who I live with. I have roommates out in San Francisco that I met online and that are my buddies now that all kind of share the same tech passion of geeking out on projects. But I think, I had a good group of friends back home in Canada. It was just, we talked about things that we liked and we didn't talk about the stuff that we didn't agree on. So.
Oh, that's so cool. And, it is a lot easier these days to be able to find your community, find people that like the same things that you like, that take the same interest and are working in the same space. Talk to me about those first 2-3 years. What were some of the challenges that you faced as you were starting to build your company?
Yeah, I mean, those first couple of years was a lot of pivoting, a lot of learning. I mean, as we've known each other now for about a year, I think, and I mean, you've seen it. Like we've kind of talked to you about a couple of different things, and lots of other people I know. We've been experimenting, thinking through what we're going to work on. So I think that it's just a ton of learning. And I think that you kind of like the sponge mentality that I had of, hey, I gotta listen to everybody, I gotta take everybody's feedback, and then I gotta let a ton of it out. A lot of it's not gonna be that useful, a lot of it's not gonna be relevant for me. I'm gonna let it out, and then I'm gonna make my decisions and make my moves that I want to make. But I think that it's changes to the team, bringing in new people. Sometimes I bring on employees that were super great, but they need to go find other jobs, like other opportunities made more sense for them. So I think that it's just, for me, it was really just learning, failing, learning a little bit more, going from there.
it's cool to hear you talk about that, because I think a lot of people go at this in different ways, and you take information, you put your best plan together, you take advice from people around you, and you listen to that. But at the end of the day, you got to move, right? You got to take that step forward, and you're going to make mistakes, you're going to fail, but that's going to be part of your experience. And then next time you'll know what to do. But I love that you said, hey, I'm going to take what I can. I'm going to grab onto some of this. I'm going to let go of some of this, but I'm moving forward.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I think, and I think the hardest idea for everybody to give up on is that first one. And it's not giving up, but normally your first idea that you come up with is the one that you're super attached to, right? You don't want to change. There's like a personal attachment to it. You take it really personally when people, they're insulting your baby, your creation, right? But I think that when you stop that and you start to be a little bit more rational, like, hey, is this going to work? If it's not going to work, okay, then we're going to go figure it out. That's kind of what I tried to do.
Well, what was that first idea for you that you had to let go of?
Yeah, that first idea for Frenter was we were doing a marketplace for renting out tools and ladders and that kind of stuff. And that was that was our first version. It grew super quick. We had 300,000 plus tools. We had thousands of users across the country. In Canada, we were based. So we were growing super quick, but it wasn't working. Like, it was working. And I think, a cool little piece of, like, a nice saying I like to use is, like, it's really easy to do shit that feels right. It's really hard to do the right shit. Like, it's hard. And so, like, this felt right. Okay, it's working, but we weren't making any money, and it's really hard to make, to make a lot of money off a $10 tool rental. And so we weren't really making that much money, even though we had a ton of users. And I was just at a point where, hey, this isn't working. I think I have some other ideas. Maybe I go work on them. So.
That's interesting. So how did you get to that point? You have that realization that this idea is not what you thought it was. It's not yielding the results that you hoped it would. What was that moment where you said, hey, we're shifting?
That was, so I was pitching this investor. I was reaching out to, I didn't have any money at this point. I was saying, okay, I want to raise a little bit of money. I think, our marketplace was working. For like an actual business, it was growing super quickly. Like with our users. And so I was like, I'm going to raise a little bit of money. I pitched this investor named John, and he was he's a billionaire from Canada, a pretty famous guy. He founded the largest seafood company in North America. And so met him, and basically he said, look, I hate your marketplace idea. I don't know why people would want to rent a toaster, but if you start a company for helping rental companies and you give them software and it's like a point of rental type of idea that I had, was our second version of what we were doing. I'll give you 50 grand to go work on that. And so he gave me 50 grand, got some other money from his friends, and all of a sudden had, a big bag of like $250,000 at 16 years old to go work on this other idea. That
was at 16?
Yeah.
That's incredible, Zach. There you are pitching $1 billion investors at 16 years old. And he gives you 50 grand and he says, go out and build this technology.
Yep.
So what do you do then?
So it's funny because like this is kind of the part I normally skip over, but like it ended up being one of the biggest pieces. So I found a co-founder, this guy who had worked at another marketplace we had bought another marketplace. We didn't pay a ton for it, but we bought this little marketplace in Canada that was running out of money because they had a ton of users, and we paid like 40 grand for it. And this guy who had founded that company, he was super smart. He was like 30 years old at the time. I was 16. And so I was like, whoa, this is, a super smart, older, experienced guy that can probably help me with the sales. Because if we're going to sell to companies, I got a squeaky voice. I'm like, kind of a short teenager with braces. It's going to be a little bit harder for me to sell to these guys. And so I brought him on, kind of recruited a little bit of a team. And then I realized how quickly I burnt through that 270K within like 2 months because I just hired too many people. And so then went back to those same investors and said, hey, we got like 4 rental companies using this platform. We're making a little bit of money. We were making like $4 grand a month, nothing crazy by any means, but they gave me another 350,000 and then we kept working. And that was a couple months later.
Wow. What? I'm so glad I got that piece out of you because I had not heard that either. That's a critical point though in the story. So tell us, we've been all around it. We've hinted at it. What is Frenter and what is it today that you do?
Yeah. So Frenter is a data intelligence company. We basically our entire focus is to help companies that move dirt, that, sell machines that move dirt, to help them be more efficient. And so we do that basically by our core product is a tool called Omen. It basically listens to the environment in which equipment operates in. It looks at like temperature of the equipment. It looks at the temperature outside. It looks at basically we built like a stethoscope for equipment. It has this ability to understand the equipment, the inner workings, just like you would on your heart. But then it also acts as a doctor, and it's able to say, okay, what does this actually mean? What does this noise mean? What does this vibration mean? And how is it actually going to, help you? And then it next thing it does is make changes to the piece of equipment. So we're basically trying to build like the stethoscope, the doctor, and then also the pharmacy all in one for heavy equipment.
I love the analogy. I can even I can understand that one, Zach. That's good. So you've built a stethoscope for heavy equipment. Is this new technology?
Yeah, so we're probably the first, and we're patenting it. We're in the process. We have patent pending right now, and like it's a completely new way to think about it. And we created this idea because my buddies who I brought on to this company, they worked at Teledyne, and one of them worked kind of did some contracting for the U.S. Government, and so. Just a little bit of freelance work, nothing too crazy. But one thing you saw that was really cool is that they were doing a lot of data around attack helicopters. And so attack helicopters use the same kind of data where they look at, how the rudder's moving, all this kind of stuff. But that's $100 million machine. And so we said, how do we think about packaging it for a $50,000 machine? How do we package it for $1 million machine? And how do we make it work for every single type of machine, not just one? Because it's easy to make it work for one. It's really hard to make it work for 10,000 different types of machines. So it's a new way to think about it. It's kind of bringing in kind of the smartest guys that I know on the data side and figuring it out from there.
I was thinking about that as you were going through your story, because you're right. You've got 10,000 different pieces, variables to consider with all the different brands, all the different types of equipment, all the different components, all the different hardware and pieces that go into that. How do you take all that into consideration as you're building this technology?
Yeah, so some of it is the secret sauce behind it, but I think to keep it super simple, it's basically just you gotta break it down into pieces, and you gotta basically do this thing where let's start with an excavator, like simple cat excavator, and we're basically gonna say, okay, what does it look like? What does a healthy brand new machine look like? What does a machine look like that's been used 1,000 hours, 2,010, all the way up to 50, 60,000 plus 100,000 hours? And we look at that, and then we also go and we say, okay, what does it look like when it's lifting a bunch of dirt? How does it look like when it's lifting certain types of dirt? And then we do that 10,000 times. So it takes a long time to build that data, to get it. And then on top of that, once you get it, you got to do something with it, which is what we do. But we've basically been able to figure out how to do it in a way that is replicable, so we don't have to do it 10,000 times. And we figured out a way that we can basically, the doctor can diagnose the problems on the individual machine. We don't need to have seen the machine. It doesn't need to have, understood the machine before. We built a system that basically on every single machine, it's able to consult and figure it out in a matter of hours. So
my brain can't even comprehend everything that you just said there, but it sounds amazing. Zach, have you seen this thing in action yet? Have you seen it work? Do you have a success story where you can say, hey, we were able to diagnose a problem, and then we were able to provide a solution, and then we sent them over here to the pharmacy that I'm starting up next week?
yeah, so we've been testing it. We have pilots right now. We're under some pretty strict NDAs on these pilots, but I would say that we've been able to. The first thing we did was we used on test data. So we created a fictional excavator. Then I went and rented an excavator, and I put it in my investor's lawn and dug up her lawn and basically moved dirt around for a couple of days for about a week to test if it could work. And we made sure that we got a used excavator, and basically tested it there. We figured out, okay, it worked. And then now we have pilots with a bunch of different companies, about a half dozen or so companies that range from equipment rental to large GCs to some large government organizations that we're testing and piloting it with. So I think we'll have some really cool success stories in the next couple of months, but that we can share. But right now, I'll just say this: it's very cool to see what we've been able to come up with. Like so far, it's pretty mind blowing for me. And if this technology can continue to work, it's going to change the way people think about equipment and how we make equipment smarter.
So this is super new. Like, you haven't even announced this.
No.
Folks, you're hearing it first right here on the Give Us the Dirt podcast, bringing breaking news that's revolutionizing the dirt world. We are bringing it to you first today. Zach, that's really cool. So I've got a question. You used the example of a cat excavator. All of the manufacturers have tools that are trying to predict the use of the equipment. I mean, all of the manufacturers have similar type of technology. How is yours different, and how does it work with or alongside of some of their tools?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think that, first of all, the AEMP forever, right? Like the Association for Equipment Manufacturing Professionals has been trying to figure out how to do this for a long time. Why the innovation is not coming from them? There's a couple of reasons. And it's not, it's nothing bad. I mean, it's a very hard problem to solve. And it's the same reason why like SpaceX was able to solve it before, NASA could and get, rockets to scale. It's because when there's, when you're privately incentivized to do something like we are, we believe that it's a huge opportunity. We have the money to do it and the resources to go after it. They do too, but they're less incentivized because as of right now, it's not a core functionality of their business. And also for this to work at scale, you need more than one brand. I mean, even Caterpillar, relatively speaking, is nothing compared to the millions and tens of millions of pieces of equipment in the world. And so if you want to actually do this in a way that works, you have to do every type of equipment, and you have to bring in people that all they focus on and work on is this. And I think I've also been fortunate to I have a lot of young guys that could work at Tesla, could work at SpaceX. They have job offers they've turned down, but they're willing to clock a 12-hour day at Frenter and work through this with me. And so I think that's, those are kind of the different reasons why we've been able to out-hustle these guys. And I think on the OEM side, we make sure to integrate into all the OEMs telematics. I think the telematics are a really good lagging indicator for engine issues. And we use that because when you can bring it all together, you get an even more powerful system. So we've been collaborating with some of the OEMs. I think that there's an even bigger vision here to work with the OEMs, but to start, we use their telematics. We use some of their existing systems on there, but we have our own sensors and all that kind of stuff.
Zach, it sounds impressive, and it sounds like you've got some pretty amazing folks working with you, to some very smart folks that can figure this stuff out. For the average contractor, for the average business owner that's in the dirt world, moving dirt each and every day, a lot of this can seem overwhelming, right? There's data coming in to an extent that we've never seen it in our industry before. Is there a thing as too much data?
I think the world doesn't need another dashboard. Like there's so many of these dashboards that come out, and that's where I've tried to be very, very careful of like, I've been in this industry now for, 5+ years. I've been working on Frenter. I have learned enough now to know that there's two things that, contractors don't want. They don't want more work you don't need another widget that goes on your machine that like you got to solder into. So we made sure that all of our tech that we put in is non-invasive, super easy to use. And I think the second piece they don't need another dashboard. You don't need another thing you got to check, another thing you got to manually update, another thing you got to look at. You need something that is very powerful, but doesn't live in a silo, which is kind of the issue with all these tools right now. And so a big thing for me is just we have built a huge network of integration partners, whether it's existing ERP systems like plugging into the Texadas of the world for rental companies, or you're plugging into the parts procurement systems of the world like GearFlow, or let's say like a Smart Equip, something like that, or it's plugging into the existing telematics and asset management solutions you use, like Samsara. Building off of existing tools that you're using is the only way you're going to build anything that is, useful and get it to scale. Because I can get a couple of hundred people to use it by themselves to look at a computer every day, but it's not going to provide real change or real value.
Right. And, I was talking to Brian about it and told him I had you on the podcast this afternoon, and he told me to tell you hello. By the way, I think you guys got a chance to meet out at the Dirt World Summit. Yep. But we were talking about how the goal of the data that you're generating here is predictability and optimization. Is that fair? And so, Brian's thinking about, all right, we'll get all this data. We get data from here and here and here. I'm going to have to hire a team to manage all this data, to extract all this data, and then tell me what to do with the data. At the end of the day, he just wants to know, how does this help me move more dirt? How would
Yeah.
you answer that
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, to keep it super simple, I mean, the first thing, and I think for you guys, and we're seeing this with some really interesting case studies we've been doing, is like cost per cubic yard of whether it is concrete, whether it's dirt, whether it's whatever it is, how do you reduce that? I think that our focus now has been, again, what is the easiest way that you want to see this? And like, we have a data team that can help you, that can give you feedback. I mean, half our goal is consulting, right? Like half of our job is to make sure that, yeah, we have the data, but what are you going to do with it? And so with a bunch of our clients, we figured out different forms that work for them, whether it's like a PDF of like, hey, we're going to give you a little report that's going to tell you exactly what are the insights, what are the pieces of equipment that we believe are in need of early prediction, or whether it's, a service team and we're going to manually update it and let them know as soon as there's issues and alerts. And so I think that at the core of it, the goal is everybody knows that with smoother operations and with less, hiccups, and with 100% utilization and making sure your equipment never goes down, your cost per cubic yard per equipment is going to continue to reduce. And the goal is to keep it predictable and to never have kind of these issues that make you move less dirt, but more importantly increase your cost for the overall site. So
That's great. That's great. And you also, it sounds like you've made sure that you've got resources in place to be able to work with the project managers, to work with the equipment managers, procurement managers, owners, to be able to understand and decipher the data that's coming out and how to use that in their purchasing and in their maintenance of the fleets.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's, there's a lot of people you see from California that want to come up and they want to build something and they think it looks really great and they add a couple widgets to it and they think it's going to change the world. I think my point of view on it is you got to do all that. You got to build really great tech, but then you got to do something with it. And I think that when you are able to identify like, what is our goal here? Our goal is to help you move more dirt. How do we do it? That's up to you. And that's what fits best for your operation as a customer. Right. And I think that that's what I've been trying to do with all of our customers, is just like, what is the best form for this, and then how can I help you be more successful? Because this is just, the data is the start. The next thing is how I can help you. What do you do with the data, and how do we do better? How do we move smarter than everybody else?
That's it. How do we move more dirt? Zach,
Yeah.
just to kind of wrap things up here, I wanted to ask you some what's next questions. All right, what's next for Frenter? I think we just kind of got the breaking news, but is there anything else on the horizon that you want to talk about or you're excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're bringing on, thinking about what does the next stage of investment look like, which is pretty cool. So I think we'll have some news and some moves there as well. We're thinking about, bringing on some new people as well, making changes there. But overall, I think my focus for the next 12 months is just to take our pilot customers, learn as much as I can from them, and hopefully, their goal is to learn something from me as well. But I think my goal is to learn as much as I can, teach them something new, and show them something new, and give them new insights that they didn't otherwise have, and just do that 100 more times and learn as much as I can. I think that being a sponge here, back to what I said at the start, is what Frenter is going to do. That's what we're just going to embody as an organization going forward. So.
Sounds like an exciting year ahead of you. What about for you, Zach? Anything personally that you're looking forward to? What's next for Zach?
Just I just got my visa, so I'm moving down to the States. Officially, I mean, I've been living in California, kind of back and forth vacationing, visiting, friends that are down there, and just to kind of see if I wanted to be there. And I think that I've realized that, this is kind of where the tech community is, and where I want to be. So I got my O1 visa and I can be down there now for 4 years. I'll probably apply for my green card next couple months.
Congratulations. Too, so. You didn't consider the East Coast at all? We have investors here, Zach. We got people that would let you dig up their front yard as a.
I think, honest, I love Boston, love New York, but
yeah, that makes sense. What about what's next for the dirt world, Zach? In your mind, what is what's coming up? Something that you're excited about? What maybe something our next challenge that we've got to prepare for?
I think the thing I've been thinking about is like community in the dirt world. I think we're having a hard time with, there's so much crap out there right now with automated outreach, I get a million messages a day on LinkedIn from people that are trying to sell me stuff. And I think it's becoming really hard when I talk to young founders or, even myself who's trying to, learn, innovate and that kind of stuff, it's really hard to break through the noise now. And I think that, the dirt world's notoriously been or not notoriously, famously been very open to help people, to support people. I mean, Aaron talks about this a ton, how much support he's gotten. I've gotten a ton of support and feedback. And so I think just, a challenge we got to deal with is just as this world gets more and more crowded and there's more and more stuff that people are like, a lot of flashing lights out there, people are trying to sell. How can we build spaces that people still feel like they can get feedback and help from, our industry leaders? So that's a big thing I've been thinking about. And I think that's kind of something that the dirt world needs to think about too.
I know every business owner would love for you to figure that out, because you're right. I think people are getting inundated with new products, new services, new ideas. And it is hard to cut through the noise on that, especially when you've got something that could potentially revolutionize the industry. How do you get that in front of the right people? So yeah, that's definitely a challenge that we've got in front of it. But you're doing it. Aaron's doing it. Bill Witt, the whole team there at Bill Witt, they're starting to figure this thing out, and hopefully we'll continue to build that community and keep sharing some of these great ideas. Well, Zach, I know you have had a day of podcasts today. I appreciate you carving out some time for the Give Us the Dirt podcast, and we look forward to seeing what comes out of your new project. I'm excited that we were able to break that here today, but definitely stay in touch with us, and we look forward to seeing more of you here in the future.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Brandon. This was awesome.
Thanks, Zach. If you like listening to the Give Us the Dirt podcast, we want you to hit the like button and subscribe for more great content.